Hello and welcome to Nollywood Film Club. I'm Mr. C, a Viroka critic. I hope you're doing well. There's not a lot to say. I think Mr. C of the NFC space today did a good job hosting. No addendum to add. Just please do the podcast things and rate us if you can. That'd be good. Give us the ratings of your heart's desire on the Spotify, on the Apple Podcasts, or wherever, whatever podcast platform you're on. If you're on Google Podcasts, that's going soon, isn't it? Maybe by the time you're hearing it, it's gone. Anyway, I don't want to waste your time. I just hope you enjoy Nollywood Film Club discussing A Father's Love. All right. Welcome to Nollywood Film Club. We do discuss Nollywood movies every Sunday, 6 p.m. West African time. Sometimes we discuss Nollywood topics, but today we're discussing a Nollywood movie in A Father's Love. We'll discuss what we liked about it. We'll discuss what we didn't like, and then if we have disagreements, we'll settle it in the pushback section, and then we'll do a nice summary. So let's start with what we liked. Alana, do you want to tell us what you liked about A Father's Love?
Oh, wow, why did I come and sign register early? Anyways, good evening. Actually, I've not finished watching the movie. I've not finished watching. I've just like a lot of stuff has been going on, so I haven't been able to finish watching the movie. But, I actually came to say first of all what I love most. So many strong performances, like so many. Ah, God, I was just clapping like yes, this is acting. So there were so many strong performances from David Jones to Yvonne, even this guy, even Funny Bone, and like God, so many standout scenes. I love the storyline. I love that it's a simple story. I love that it's a relatable story. I love that it's touching. Like it's a story. Yes, it's set in Lagos, but we are no longer doing Lekki. Like they took it back to the streets, just everyday life of everyday people that Nigeria is dealing with. I really like that they took a simple story. It took a relatable story. I like that they use radio. I like that they use social media and all that. And I like that they brought the whole DNA talk thing. Like it's just a really good story, but a very simple story still. I also liked the I call it inclusivity, but I enjoy stories, or I enjoy characterization of characters more of that are not just the usual characters that we see every day in Nollywood movies. So specifically, I like that the there's a spotlight on like northern Christians, like we see Ladi and we see Panshak, and I like that they used the outside like in casual conversation the way it's supposed to be used. And yeah, but yeah, I just really like the story. I like it.
Okay, let us know when you finish. But thanks, Alana. Elizabeth, do you want to tell us what you like about A Father's Love?
Yes. So first thing I noticed is that it's has similar. There's a similar theme with what we reviewed last week, and of course, I'm not drawing the conclusion that because it's the same like production um, stuff, the whole Steve Gugas thing. So what I really liked about it, the simple, everyday Nigerian story, right? I like that it was because the story is around working class group, the taxi man, his wife that sells akara, their friend who's a mechanic. So it's different in the form, in the sort of way where we do scale. Of course, I wouldn't think that this is like a big scaled film. Also, then I like the film it handled about, it talked about familiar love and forgiveness and community, especially with the entire DNA going on radio, which is very Nigerian in that sense. Like there's always a radio person who is um, either collecting money for people, this everyday life, sub stories and stuff. They want to use the word sub story, but It's a very Nigerian film. I like it. I like the location use. I like the interior of the house. I like the child actors. There's one of the child actor from last week too. She's here. Um, Good performance. I don't want to use this word strong, but good performance from everyone. But that's what I like about it too. Seeing what I do not like.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, beloved, that's your shout out, I guess. Yeah, but I think I can't remember what's her other name? The other person. Darasimi, thank you. Yes, she's been on our radar for a while since um
Something special.
Something special. Thank you, Mrs. C. Mrs. C has my memory. Yeah, but been good to see somebody join the ranks in that in that department, so we can have some good child actors. All right. I think it was Ada. You want to tell us what you liked about A Father's Love?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a relatable story. It felt something like we could all be, or we could all relate to. Obviously, I have never been involved in any DNA fraud, so please don't tie that to me. But in terms of like the story, didn't feel too sometimes far fetched or non-Nigerian. I felt that I kept it real to something we could definitely relate to. Um, I like that the story had a good mix of handling a serious topic, but it infused the comedy well. So the comedy wasn't too forceful, and it didn't take away from, the themes, the serious themes that they were handling. And even when they were looking for the child's parents, or going to the police station. Those are funny scenes, but it didn't feel completely removed from the movie. So I like how they managed to strike that balance well, and still gave it the correct enough weight for it to be like a serious enough matter. I like the family affection displayed. I think sometimes it can feel a little bit forced. It can feel very directed and scripted, but I think they did quite a good enough job, especially from the children's side. I think children are not very well directed, or maybe they just don't know how to act. But in this movie, I felt like the affection came naturally. That is both in terms of like the in terms of words, but also the physical affection, and it felt very natural, and I could believe that this was a real affection of family. It didn't feel like this was something that was forced. So yeah, kudos to them for that. I like the performances. I really particularly like Uche Jumbo. I think she really, really captured the kind of, would I say, busybody, messy type of radio host personality. I think she was really, really spot on that in that role. It felt quite natural to her. Obviously, the other roles were quite good as well, but I don't know, I felt quite not surprised, but I was very, I just really, really felt like she stepped into that role, and I really liked that role. So yeah, in conclusion, I felt like it seems maybe it's a bit contradictory based on the theme that they explored in the movie, but I think overall it kind of was a feel-good story. It gives you the feels, there's a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, but I think overall it's kind of like a feel-good movie, based on, I guess, the arc of how it starts and how it ends. So yeah, those are the things I like.
Okay, thanks, Ada. Anka, welcome back. Do you want to tell us other things you liked about Your Father's Love?
Yes. So I
This last 2 weeks has been good in the choices, which is good. This is what I kind of was talking about, like just telling dramatic stories about things that happen in Nigeria, or even having like complex human stories, complex something, or the people who did wrong, but they're still human beings, and it's set within Nigeria, and it's like steeped in Nigerianness, but these are very universal stories and things that happen that people can connect to, because this is something that most human beings have connections to. And it seems relatively realistic enough. But it's still fiction, and I never believe that and I believe all fictions can never take about the complexities of actual life. Life is a very complex thing. Nobody knows anything, so you can't write a fiction about it. But this is the type of thing that I think we are going to shine at as a movie culture or movie making, whatever. The actors acted very lovely. The story was very impactful. Um, it talks about complex things. There's there is right, there is wrong, but there is like it's very gray, and it often doesn't use like really, really heady, like often those type of stories you do not deal like complex things and complex philosophical things or whatever. Whenever we see them on screen, it's not usually typical people that they use to tell that story. They sometimes use just like they have to be a grand hero, a grand person, maybe an upper middle class person, a professor, something. Never just a typical person, which I think is also a good thing that the movie does. This movie did. Um, so the the photography, the what is cinematography is wonderful. It's a good side of Lagos. It has the use of English and Hausa, wonderful. Loved it. Everything. This is my first time kind of hearing people you just use Hausa. Sometimes when you watch movies, you don't even think that there are Hausa people in Lagos. You know that there are Hausa people in Lagos, but whenever you watch Nollywood movies, they don't really get that represented. And I was surprised that even Jokide knew how to speak Hausa. It was a wonderful story. All round, pretty good. Liked it. Sure, there are problems, but I enjoyed myself. Thank you. Thank you for this last 2 weeks. I don't know what will happen going on in the future, but thank you.
All right. You're welcome, Mike. Stephanie, do you want to give us the things that you enjoyed about this movie?
Sure. So what I liked about this movie, number one, first of all, it follows like a different career path, which everyone has already talked about. But I don't think it's every day you see a movie following a taxi driver. So I'm happy they gave that career path time to shine, and I feel like that also helps with like storytelling. You don't always need like a grand career to have a good story. So I'm glad they did that, and it paid off actually. So that's number one. The second thing I liked how they told the story about loving a child who you didn't give birth to. I feel like, especially in a country like Nigeria, I feel like we need stories like that more. I feel like that was very touching, very loving, and hopefully we get to see more stories like that. And the last thing I liked, this may be controversial, but I support women's rights and wrongs, so I was very happy that they gave me a chance to see all that play on screen. So I loved the female lead. I loved her. I loved her character. I loved everything about it. So, thank you. Those are the things I loved about the movie.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Okay, I guess now you get feathers off. Mrs. C?
Yeah, so what did I like about A Father's Love? I'll say I did enjoy some of the performances, like Yvonne Jigide. I think she was acting her butt off. Also, I really liked her pidgin. Not to sold on her Hausa, but her pidgin was really good. She seemed really comfortable there. I really liked the locations as well. I liked the look of their home, the mechanic workshop, her little shed where she sold akara, the radio station, all of that. I really enjoyed all of that. They felt very well thought out. Um, what else did I like? I thought the baby was cute. I thought I thought the child actors were good. I think I was telling Mr. C the other day that what does Nollywood plan to do when Darasimi grows up? And then I think last week we saw Beloved and what's it called? Kilborough. I'm like, oh, okay, there's two of them. Let's get more. We need more child actors, and I don't know. We've not finished directing the adults, to be honest, but it's like we do need we do need more child actors, and people need to actually put effort into directing them and really getting the best out of them. What else did I like? I don't know who spoke before me, but yeah, I'm also here for women's rights and women's wrongs. And I appreciate another polo impregnating somebody's babe before they marry them. Consistency. If you are friends with a polo, avoid it.
Wait, who's
Her ex-fiance was Paul.
And yeah,
all
it
right?
seems like they were doing that thing that they were talking about in that movie, Afanomana.
Yep, same thing.
Yeah. They were doing the same thing and Polo.
All right, yeah. Not a good for. Okay, I think you're back on. Did you want to tell us what you liked about A Father's Love?
Oh, yeah. I love quite a lot about it. Uh, to start off with, I like it when a movie sets out to say one thing in particular. Now, the movie did touch upon many things, but you can distill it down to one thing, which is what it is about, what it means to be a man and what it means to be a father. So I really like that about it. The focus in that was really good. Uh, I liked how they showed the lives of, daily wagers and how it is a day-to-day struggle. That was really well shown. Yeah, there's one thing I forgot to mention in my review, shameless self-promotion time. But yeah, one thing I forgot to mention in my review is also about the titling. That was really well done. It reminded me of, what's that movie called? Catch Me If You Can, the Leonardo DiCaprio one. Yeah, it had a similar style. So that was also well done. And there were quite a few other things. I really like that scene where Beloved talks to her dad, and she starts out all chirpy, and then she starts out crying and blaming herself. So that was that was an attack on the emotional side. That was really well conceived and executed. What else? Yeah, I think that is most of it. I mean, there is a lot. I mean, even technically, I like the way Legos was shown. I found that also to be fresh. Uh, yeah, the first point I was making about what it means to be a man and what it means to be a father, and especially in a conservative culture where there's this whole thing about blood being thicker than water and not being accepting of a child who's not from your lineage. I think a story like this does go a long way. So yeah, that is there. Also, the way in which the characters were written, I think there is a certain sensitivity that comes when a female writes a male character. So yeah, that's also one thing that stood out for me. I guess. Yeah, I guess I've said at least things that are on the top of my mind.
All right. Okay. Thanks, another good fellow. If you do want to say some of the things you like, but you don't want to speak, or maybe we've run out of spots, you can just comment underneath the space, and we'll read you your likes, your dislikes, or your comments in general. Okay. Bob, do you want to tell us some of the things you liked about A Father's Love? Can people hear Bob? Is it just me? Can I hear Bob?
No, I can't.
Okay. Sorry, Bob, we cannot hear you. Maybe try going off and coming back on. All right. Uh,
Can you hear me now?
oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
All right. I think the major thing that I appreciate about, or will I say the major person that I appreciate in the movie is Yvonne Jegede, right? Not a lot of people talk about how talented she is, but I think that movie, A Father's Love, was one movie that had me like respecting her a million times over, right? Her depiction of of motherhood, especially when she was catering to um the child that was abandoned. What was the name of the child? The name they gave the child again, right? When they were what?
Outer.
Alta, yes, Alta. The way she was catering to that child, it's not something that is very common within the Nigerian culture, right? It's not something that is very common, and it was really nice to see somebody, to see her character, typically a mother from the trenches, showing that amount of care to a child that has literally no origins, right? And I think another thing that I really, really liked about it was the twist in the storyline. When you're watching the movie in the beginning, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, okay, this is another really sad movie about a family going through challenges and just jumping through different kinds of hurdles to cater to their sickle cell child and all of that. That was the kind of energy it was given at first. But with all of the talk about the abandoned child coming into the picture, the whole DNA thing going on, where one thing led to another, and he got to find out that the three kids that he has been catering to all his life were not actually his. All of those things just coming together full circle like that. It was really, really interesting to watch, coupled with the fact that the entire film was almost done in like pidgin, like it was like 90% pidgin, if not 95, right? I think it was only the kids that weren't speaking pidgin English. So every other person was speaking, pidgin English, and it was something that just felt really natural and really interesting to me watching it. For me personally, I see A Father's Love as the second best movie on Amazon Prime after Breath of Life. I know a lot of people would want to argue that, but based on how the film made me feel, right? Based on how the film made me appreciate Yvonne Jagade so much. Like I had to even tweet about it. The way the film made me appreciate Yvonne Jagade, her fierce acting and her delivery of the roles. I think I liked her a lot more when she got caught in, the biggest lie in the entire film, which was the paternity of the children, right? The way she reacted, the tears, the way she kept begging and all of that, the way everything just felt so natural and so real. Nothing was forced in that movie. Her husband, I think his name is it David Jones? That's his real name. David Jones is another person I didn't expect to actually really deliver. I normally know him as, a singer, but I didn't think that he would actually deliver. But he surprised me beyond words. His chemistry with Funny Bone was fantastic. It was beautiful. It was really, really nice. So the film in general, I liked the fact that it just kind of like corrected a lot of things that seem to be normal within the Nigerian space, but then they're actually ills. Like the fact that Nigerians don't feel so comfortable taking care, or a typical Nigerian, traditional Nigerian, doesn't feel so comfortable taking care of a child that isn't theirs, right? I like the fact that that's ill in the society was corrected, right? And I also appreciate the fact, even though it's kind of like a dicey conversation, which is the father agreeing to stay and take care of the children. I like what the writer was trying to do with that part, because he was trying to be in tune with the conversations that are being had on social media now about paternity fraud and the whole DNA thing going on. I think the writer was try to push an agenda, right? Try to push an agenda that, in as much as blood is a binding force in the family, for the fact that you have played the role of a father to these children for so long, the children shouldn't have to suffer on account of the mother's mistakes, right? That is a conversation as we had on social media for so long. If a man should find out that the kids that he has been catering to for 10 years, 15 years, right, 5 years, happen to be happen to not be his kids, should he stay or should he leave? So I just like the fact that that conversation was brought up in that light. So yeah.
All right. No, thanks, Bob. Yes, that paternity fraud conversation has been happening a lot. I don't know when this film was made. It's we could almost have a separate conversation about the different reactions between David and Afam Afam's character in Afam Infinite. So, but yeah,
The movie was made after Tinubu. So I said the movie was made after Tinubu, so we can tell it's like maybe a year ago or less. So it's around the same paternity fraud period.
All right. Okay, Shozi, do you want to tell us what you liked about A Father's Love?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know. I was so happy when I found out you had already started the space. I've been looking forward to speaking on this movie, to be honest. The guy who just spoke now, he kind of said 50% of what I was going to say. First of all, everything in this movie it was so relatable. I could resonate with every single scene. There are a lot of themes I had to draw out from this movie, but I'm just going to try and keep it brief. I know there are other people that want to speak after me. The first thing I liked about this movie was the fact that they touched on paternity fraud. It's always, I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it's a very nice thing to do, but I get it that while we are trying to blame Ivo Jegede, she played the role of Ladi in the movie. While we are trying to blame her for, the paternity fraud, I think it's also fair enough that we also blame her husband, because his alcoholism and change in character, to me, there were major contributing factors to her actions. I don't think, again, it's not an excuse, but I'm just saying well, I tuned in late, so I don't know if anybody made mention, but I just kept on hearing one side, paternity fraud. Yes, as much as it's not right, we need to look at it from the other angle to yeah, what pushed her? And it was shown in the movie, the change in character and everything. I also like how the film kind of showed us in a certain manner the issue of men avoiding medical help for conception. I don't know if anyone has spoken about that. How fragile his ego was, toxic masculinity and, all those stuff that will prevent men from seeking solutions and addressing their own fertility issues. I don't know why it's not really spoken of the way we focus on female. If it was a woman now, they'll start, saying, oh, are you sure you didn't do abortion? Or are you sure you're not costing your family? Are you sure you're not burying, blah, blah, blah. I like the way he touched on that aspect too, Another thing I think what really made this movie stand out was the actors and the actress they use. For Jagede, any day, anytime, of course, we know she's an amazing, talented actress. She always bodies her roles. That one, you can't even argue. Then Ukwa, he killed it, honestly. This is one of the to me, this is one of his debut movie I really, really like enjoyed compared to like all those other ones he's been doing recently, Then the little girl, Dara Simi, I think she's a star on her own, she held her own parts. Then the guy who played her husband, the David Jones, the first time I watched him in a movie was in Omogeto the Saga. Yeah, I remember. So like it just felt like all his roles have been bleh, but this movie kind of like went all the way. It was like this particular role was designed for him. Like he really killed it. Like he bodied this role. Then another thing I liked in this movie was I like the fact that when he found what's it called, the missing child, he tried taking the child to the police station. You know the way Nigerian police are always shouting, the police is your friend again. I'm very glad this movie showed how corruption has eaten so deeply in the Nigerian police today. Like it was really, really shown. The state of rot, in fact, I don't even want to start like talking about that. I don't want to focus on that, in this space. Then from that to the church, I just like the transformation of everything. Like what someone with his heart, what they would do in that situation. I feel like he did his best. He kind of like felt morally conflicted about leaving the child in an empty congregation. I understood that, but still, like I don't know. I feel like a lot of this is Nigeria. Many people will leave the child and feel like, oh, okay, I have a lot of issues, or I have my own family problem, all those kind of things. If I leave the child, nobody's going to know after all. The blame will not be on me. But he still tried his best to like, reunite the child. Trying to find the parents, trying to prove that he's not the child's biological father. Why he was still dealing with his wahala at home. Um Overall, the movie is really, really good. Like I really enjoyed. Like everything was so real, felt so real. I really enjoyed the whole movie. I mean, that's just all I have to say.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Shazy. I don't know if you mentioned in Kim, but I don't recall in relation to this film, except if I missed it. But he's not in this, right? Um. Anyway, just in case. Um. One thing I wanted to I'm going to say the things that I liked about this, but I think one of this is will almost function as a pushback, but it's something I was going to say anyways. I'm not skipping to the pushback section, but Ichena said I'm often bothered when people raise the true Nigerianness of a movie because it is about real Nigerians, i.e., poor people. Especially since these poor people are never given actual personalities; they're just symbolic emblems of poverty. So I actually I know what he is complaining about, and that's a real thing. But however, in this movie, I think one thing I liked about the movie is that this movie isn't really about their poverty. It's a problem that happened in the main drama is about it's almost like the tail end of the Afame Funa tale, where it's basically about paternity fraud. It's about finding a baby in his car and like what to do with it. It's not really their poverty is a minor. It's a minor thing in there. I mean, I think having a sickle cell child can be a child with sickle cell can be difficult for even a family doing okay. And to be honest, I didn't feel like the story lent on their poverty, and that's something I actually liked about the film. I agree with a lot of people in terms of the performances. I enjoyed a lot of them. I think Yvonne Jigede is just going to go. I think then at the end of the year we vote on we vote on we vote on like best performances or stuff. Best female performance. She's definitely going to be up there now. It's going to take something difficult to beat this performance for me. And I think this is a cliched story, but I liked that they took a cliched story and they did something kind of interesting with it. And this thing about paternity fraud is a story I've seen done many, many times. In fact, I've seen it done attached to sickle cell in terms of how they find it. the way a father finds out is because because of this sickle cell thing. I'm pretty sure I've seen it before, at least in some Morocco TV movies or something like that. And so
it turned out the children were switched at birth.
well,
I remember that film.
it turned out the children were switched at birth.
Yeah.
Yes, there's that one, but like it's not even just that one. It's just it's a I've seen that trope done before, but this is good, and I'm talking about the way they took that story and they told it in a way I haven't quite seen before. They added parts, and for me, a lot of it was done because they weren't focusing like Mrs. C famous bombastic elements from Far From Home, where we like to go from just big plot points to the other plot points without caring about like just the parts in the middle. I like that they took a bit more care with. They were interested in so um um uh even the way they find the baby in the car, it's done well. It's also like him trying to why he's paying his friend is part of like a little bit of his characterization. Like, so he's not just some like bum who just keeps on borrowing and doesn't pay back. He works hard. So I enjoyed a lot of those small little things where they did. Some of the locations were fantastic. Finding just finding all these sort of the places where all the taxi parks where the taxi cars are, and just like using those actual locations. I don't know whether that didn't cause any wahala or anything, or maybe it did and they just still managed to get it off. But I thought it was nice. We tend to use a lot of drone shots to do very quick establishing shots. It did this a couple of times here, but sometimes the establishing shot was just a big pan of hot oil and akara going inside it. Yes, there we go. I know where we are now. Some simple things like that. We don't always have to do, hey, this is the whole place from the sky. I feel like that is getting, we've gotten very lazy, because it feels like, I want to ask Nigerian Nollywood, what were you doing before drone shots to do establishing shots? It's just nice to say. I forgot to say in the Kilborough one, I think they did it as well a couple of times. And it's just nice. It's just nice to see. So yeah, there's the last thing I wanted to say is Uche Jumbo's character. I really liked that character on paper. I really, really liked that character on paper. She doesn't care about any. She's doing it for her clicks. She's not a saint. She just wants the tea, and she is very open about it. I liked how that character was written. Often when you have these supporting characters, they just feel like they are what the plot. They're as thin as just what the plot needs them to be. Okay, so somebody comes in, they do this, but she had a thing. Her thing was, I don't care about you, I don't care about me. It's not what I'm about to say. It's about how sweet to the sea, and you could just tell from her that that character, she got good. She got that good guidance from either the script, a combination of probably the script and the direction from what it was. And I thought a lot of this film looked pretty. And between this film and Kilbur, it feels like this feels different from normal Nollywood. I don't know how to quite completely put my finger on it, but it feels like almost feels like a different attitude. I think Uchenna sometimes speaks about, I think he said this about Uyi's voice. I don't see it in her filmmaking in terms of something different. And that's not necessarily bad, by the way. Whatever New Nollywood is doing, good luck with it, and hopefully they make good films going forward and all of that. But there's something that feels a little different about this last two films I'm seeing. And honestly, it's nice to see because, sometimes when we do this as people who do discuss the movies every week, after a while, you get tired of seeing a certain kind of flavor. And this just feels like a different kind of flavor. It doesn't even have to be exponentially better in quality. It's just that, all right, somebody is thinking or executing things a little differently, and I'm enjoying it. Um, it's going to make me go down and watch some of the first features that I've missed from him. And in general, I like I like a lot of that work. All right. Before we pivot into the things we don't like, all right. So a couple of hands up. Shozi's hands was up first. Did you miss something?
Yeah, sorry, I omitted something, and thank God you gave me the chance because I was going to forget again. I was just going to chip in something. Was when you mentioned about Yvonne Jegede playing the role, the whole trenches thing, and I was like, yeah, I remember. I kind of agreed, unlike the typical Nollywood romance, they're always doing their dinner dates, exotic locations, blah blah blah, luxurious lifestyles. I just love the way that they also portray to show to people because there's always this argument on Twitter every two market days. Oh, broke people, stay away from love, stay away from relationships. So I just like the way the movie portrayed the love between David and Laddie, at least within the context of their own harsh realities. I mean, I like the way that we could relate to their own kind of love, like there was chemistry between them, and you can't tell me, like, I understand, like, after the whole paternity review, there was a shift, but at least for the first half of the film, you could tell that there was this chemistry between them. And me, I was rooting for them. Not a fan of love, but I was rooting for them because they made the acting look so real and all that, So, yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. I like the concept of forgiveness too. I mean, and accountability. So yeah, it was when you mentioned that I remember that I didn't say that, so I just wanted to say that as well.
Okay. Thanks, Shozi. Elizabeth, you have your hands up.
So I
Elizabeth.
wanted to say that when you said you couldn't put your hands on it, like what makes this a bit different, I would say that this film, this story, is a slice of life, right? And that's what makes it different because this is a slice of life that people can just watch. I think Nollywood has not, no offense, has not done enough slice of life films, more like that gets people going because people will just come up with, oh, it's so boring. What am I watching? Right. But this particular one handled, because if you look at it, it's just the conflict happened because of it from the ordinary life, like day-to-day activity. Him and his friend, they went somewhere, he found somebody left baby in his car. Do you understand? This is a conflict that came up as a result of the day-to-day activity and everything surrounding them. Like like you did mention, it's not centered about their living arrangement or how their life is per se, but the entire conflict weaving into, we understand that they are working class, and then they happen upon this radio station, needs to raise money for them. These fake parents showed up automatically, miraculously. These are just regular schmegular slice of life, and I think that's what makes it great and enough for people to watch because I mean, not a lot of people have said, oh my god, I don't really get it, I don't know what they were trying to say, I don't know what genre this is, but this is great.
Yes, I agreed. Alana, did you want to say something?
Oh, sorry, just quickly. One more thing I actually like the scene after he found out Junior wasn't his son, and then he was just walking aimlessly. Like I really like that scene. I just the follow up from the train station and then to when we started beating him. It was that's what I just really like the scene. I like the picture, especially when it was raining. I really like the background and all that.
Okay. Inka?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Elizabeth took what I wanted to say about it being a slice of life story. And that's the thing too. I think I already said this. Um slice of lives are much difficult to write. They're very difficult to write. That's why I really love slice of life. But because you have to capture, relate to people, and people can see that stuff, and you're also still talking about things. What's it called? You have themes, and you're still talking about philosophies about things and all that stuff in it, and in the everyday, because life is everyday. In the everyday, those questions come up. You don't need for it to be God's. You don't have to fly all the way into space and then say a big poem. You know, you don't need that. You don't often need that sometimes. I like those things. I'm not gonna lie. I love those things. I love hyper whatever. But the most in many ways, this movie is very, very good for that. It's such a difficult movie to make that it seems so simple, but it's very difficult. And that's why you always get grand movies all the time, because grand movies are much, much easier to make. They are spectacles. Not to say it's not difficult to make grand movies, because people can make empty grand movies, and we know we've watched a lot of empty grand movies in this. But it's much easier to make spectacles than it is to make something that you don't necessarily need spectacles for and get people to be entertained. And that's why this movie, I think, is one of the better movies I've watched this year. And
Yeah. And
and
just
I'm,
maybe.
I'm considering even Hollywood too. I'm even putting Hollywood into it too. And
All right. Okay. Thanks, Winkle. Something worth adding as well is I was just thinking about it. This film feels almost as much as like poverty as Kilborough was about crime. It's not really. It's just the backdrop of which a bunch of these things are happening. They're both family dramas. Kilborough and this, in my opinion, anyway, majority family dramas, which is it's always exciting because like, I've always talked about the presentation. Sometimes a lot of these stories is not you can tell the same story in different ways. How are you going to frame it? How are you going to present it to the audience? I really liked this part. No, maybe I need to check the full season of Before the Veil. Is it Beyond? Yeah. Beyond the Veil. What's Before the Veil? All right. Okay, let's move on to the things that we did not like about A Father's Love. Alana, do you want to start? How do you, when you love things, you love them wholeheartedly?
Then coupled with the fact that I haven't actually finished the movie, so I will have to step back on this one. I do not have anything to say.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Alana. Elizabeth?
So I've not had time to really like write what I did not like about this film. So I'm just going to be yapping off the top of my head. But I remember that when I wanted to start writing something before I got distracted, in my head I said, "Shall we just refer to last week?" Because the problems I had with this film is similar to the problems I had last week with Kilborough. It was big. The pacing, guys. You know how Pearl said last week that they did not know how to end the conversation. It just felt like nobody wanted to leave the room. I said something, and you say something. Then I said something, and you say something, and you say something. Then I said something. I'm like, God, 2 hours. There is no reason on earth and in heaven that I should watch this. Saw the time again. I was like, when will I sleep and wake up and watch this thing? So that pacing, not so good. I don't know. I don't want to make inference that maybe we are trying to nail storytelling, but we are still shooting in prose, very much like novel themed. Sifa Asani Gowon, I've read 2 of her books. I really love her. So maybe it's because she's prose verse. I'll leave that to your imagination. Then another thing is the pigeon was written in old theatrical pidgin. You know, when we're younger, I don't know about how all of us were, I don't know we were childhood together, but way back then, the way pidgin used to sound in like all those radio drama, which the pidgin vocabulary and structure where you say now we something. I don't know if you get my point. Like now for the way it was structured and the way it came off, unlike you, bro, that it felt like the again Wafi pigeon or mami or PH pigeon is not like the standard, but I also just felt that this was written in the structured pigeon way and delivered like a theatrical, like what you would watch on stage. I'm not so sure how it's, but it just transported me to the 90s. Um, I didn't like the use of music. I thought it was jarring. I thought it was intrusive. I thought it was interruptive. I did not like sometimes I'm watching and then maybe I leave the screen to go do something important, like write my assignment, and then I flip and I hear the music from nowhere, bam, and then I have to go back to what just happened in case maybe I missed something. And it's just this guy sitting down eating, and so what happened? So then I rewind and nothing. Why did that music come up just now? I don't think the music was great. Um, Another thing that I didn't like, unlike Kilborough, right? This did a better job trying to almost all the conflict was organically, so it wasn't exactly contrary, but I thought that the ending with the fake kidnappers, fake parents that wanted the money thing, I thought it was contrary in a sense, in a way, the way they just, also even the way they delivered their pidgin, like, oh, and I was like, okay, I was like, oh, and me, I'm out of, nobody say I even want the Peking, nobody me even get, it felt like, if you guys were in Abuja, an ordinary citizen was the one that just caught kidnappers in his radio station, wallahi, they are not leaving that place. It just felt a bit very glory to God sort of ending. So I felt that was very out of place. There are other things, but let me leave it for people to come up with. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth. Ada, do you want to tell us some of the things that you didn't like about A Father's Love?
Yeah, I think the main thing that summarizes my dislike is basically the second half. So I liked the pacing of the first half, I liked the story, I liked the themes, and I think it just did a complete switcheroo in the second half. They introduced this whole paternity fraud thing, and it is incongruous with the beginning of the story. I think it doesn't seem as stark because it's still within the lines of family children. So perhaps it wouldn't have felt like a stark difference to viewers, but it was a complete different story. You started a story, or well, it developed into a story about a missing child, trying to find the child's parents, trying to understand how to take care of it, and these parents, potentially developing conflicting emotional feelings about this child. And that got completely derailed and taken into a whole nother story about this paternity fraud in a way that we did not hear anything about this child at all until towards the end when they were when they went back to the radio station. So yeah, I did not like, and it wasn't a story that followed from the first story. So it wasn't a direct consequence of them finding the child that led to the paternity fraud. So it was just a completely parallel story that took away from what we've spent quite a lot of the time building in the first half. Similarly, I just didn't like the pacing of the second half as well. They spent a lot of time with the whole explanation when he goes back to her, explaining why she did this, how she did this, begging for forgiveness, and that took quite a lot of time. And I felt, I think at that point I kind of wasn't even paying attention as much because it was quite repetitive. They spent way too much time on that. And I felt in the first half, they had a lot more concise scenes. So they told us, they had a dialogue that was very concise and straight, kind of, well, straight to the point in terms of conversation. What do we want to get out of the scene? And then let's move on. But this one was quite repetitive. They spend way too much time on that. What else? Yeah, I think mostly it's just that I don't like that they took away, made it into a random twist about that, and that they abandoned the main story. I think the way that a famous philosopher once said, "Inside your avian, another avian day." That's the definition of this movie, because inside this movie inside this plot there was another plot for no reason, and I just didn't like that. But yeah, I think that's what I didn't like about it.
All right. No, thanks, Ada. Do you, Stephanie, do you want to tell us what you did not like about A Father's Love?
Sure. Where to start? First of all, honestly, did not like this movie as much as the others. I think it should have been called A Mother's Love, not A Father's Love, in my opinion. Let's get that out of the way. It was too long. For something that long, I was hoping to be crying at the end, but unfortunately, nothing happened. Everything felt staged. That scene where he found out that Junior was not his son, and then he walked around the rain. The rain felt very staged to me. I don't know. There was no emotion there for me. Very lackluster, I would say. And this is something I have a problem with most Nigerian movies. I when I'm watching a movie, I'm expecting maybe a few things out of either I'm very excited about continuing watching it, or it's going to be very emotional. But I find that most Nigerian movies they leave me lacking. Like, I don't feel anything, and this one was one of them too. Like, just nothing, no emotion. I don't know. The soundtrack too was not the best. Honestly, they should have just kept it. We did not need it. And I find that when they try to bring real life stories into movies without proper storytelling, I mean, you're trying to talk about a very serious issue like paternity fraud, but in a very boring way. Like, you should give us some emotion at least. Like, try to evoke some emotion from us so that we can relate to the story. But when it's just, I don't know, it was just not very well done. Let's see, what else? I mean, I already said some things I liked about it, so I'm not just going on and on about what I don't like. But let's see. I don't know. I feel like she groveled more than Boro did in the last movie, because I mean, I don't know. I don't think she did anything that bad, but I don't know. You know what? I'm going to stop here. So that's all.
Wow. Steph with
I
it.
love all the women here. I love all y'all are really I'm really here for women's rights and wrongs.
Wow, nothing really wrong. Okay.
She go ahead too.
Okay, all right. I think that's all right. I did miss you. Please go
You
on.
are always doing this. I left for 1 week and you're still doing it again.
Some
It's
things
okay.
change, yes. Well, that's true.
It's okay. I've already accepted my fate. But that doesn't mean I won't talk back to you. But so this is not necessarily, I don't necessarily think this is as bad, but I'm going to say, because I think it's something that people might say, it has to do with plot. And I'm sorry, I'm one of the people that don't believe that every single thing in a movie must have a plot. I don't believe. I know where that came from. I know where it came from, but I don't believe that. I think it serves other things other than the plot. But plot-wise, the child and the discovery of her paternity fraud does not connect. The child does not, the discovery of the child does not, like, just plot-wise, sure. But like, I do believe it fits the story because it's a theme and it's an atmosphere created for the movie. I don't think it's wrong to be in the movie. But if we're going to say plot wise, this is a criticism of something that might not be of a movie that I think is legitimate criticism in a way. If you're going to focus on plot as an angle, it does not connect. That's just it. Now my own more things that I think is more important as a criticism of the movie. The ending has some issues. David just comes to the radio station already forgiving his wife. We don't get to see how he, like by see, I mean like it has to play in front of the cameras, how he came to that decision. David is the main protagonist of the story. The story is viewed through his end. He is the person that we use to view into this. And a big emotional catharsis of even though it was always going to end that way, it's not the journey, it's not the ending, it's the journey that matters. We did not see that part, and I think that's very important. So that's misplaced. So that has to do with pacing, as Elizabeth said. The ending, the two women, I think that could have been done better, more believable, because these women are coming to come and collect money. At least you can have one person who is coming to come and collect money, but not be serious. But I have a second woman who is actually very like a serious challenger to, like, we must almost believe that indeed she's the mother, like an actual serious challenger, an actual serious like scammer who is smart enough to at least do some work. You can have a scammer that sometimes are dumb. There are dumb scammers that don't do work, and through dumb luck they win. I don't understand, but it happens in life. Another thing, it's a nice imagery. It's a nice imagery, but it indicates something. When David leaves the house after confronting his wife about the paternity fraud, he takes the picture of the children and throws it out. And the next scene we see him saying, although yes, he does give them money before he gives out money for the kids before he leaves. But him taking the pictures of the something and throw it out kind of means that because this is imagery, kind of means that he completely wants to leave the family. And so in the next scene, we see him picking up the phone. Like, the thing that makes him actually accept the phone from her is about the kids, right? But that imagery indicates that he completely removes the kids from his life. Even if that's not true, I think there should have been a scene where he's like going back to pick it up. And it will just show us in the feet of Aga, he did that, but he truly still cares about the kids. I don't know. That one is more personal. That one is more like subjective to me, because I feel like that's a pretty powerful imagery. That's it. Those are the things that I think this movie did wrong. There are some continuity issues, but hey, even in Meet Me in St. Louis, I love that movie. Judy Garland is singing so very well. It's a big movie. They put a lot of money into it. There's a continuity issue in that movie. So great classic movies have continuity issues. It's okay. That's it for me, honestly.
All right. Thanks, Inka. I forgot to mention that Eva has been cooked today a couple of times. Eva, sorry. Maybe in the pushback, somebody would defend you. And we.
Is the continuity guy?
He's no. He's the music sound music. He was in charge of music. A couple of people.
I said nothing about musical. That's Elizabeth. Eva, don't come for me.
All right, Nollywood fella, do you want to tell us some of the things you did not like about A Father's Love?
Okay. First thing first, the name of the movie. Like whenever I see love in a title, I'm like, no, it's very YouTube-ish. Okay, might be elitist of me to say that, but yeah, that's there. And I think there's some love that Nollywood has for having love in the title. So that is one thing. But yeah, getting to the movie, I did not like the way the radio thing was handled. Like, okay, he's been hearing radio, so he thinks it's a good medium. He goes there, and she agrees to air the story. Yep, I like it until there. But then getting him on getting him on air and having those negative comments at first and the positive comments later on, that was a bit too black and white and juvenile, if I may say so. So yeah, that was one thing I did not really like. It did not have the nuance that the rest of the movie had. Uh, the other thing was the DNA test. Yeah, so they just give him the swab and tell him to, uh, you know, collect the swab from the son's cheek or whatever. I mean, how is that legally permissible? He could have just dipped it in water and sent it for all you know. So that wasn't legit for me. The other thing was continuity. I guess someone just mentioned. Yeah, they all walk into the home, and when the kids go to take a bath, they step out of that same door. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's a sort of a housing where the bathrooms are separate or whatever. It may be okay in that case, but I don't know. That seemed a bit off to me. Um, yeah. What else was there? Mm, yeah, I guess that's more or less it.
Okay, thanks, Nolly. Good fellow. Uh, ac- Actually, worth mentioning, you would have had a review of this out, right? I think I saw it. The thumbnail anyway. I haven't seen it yet because obviously wanted to come here quickly. But yeah, if you do want to check his full thoughts, check his YouTube channel out. All right, Bob, tell us some things you did not like about A Father's Love.
Um, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Bob.
All right. I think the major thing that I did not like about it has to be the radio part, but I think the part of the radio thingy was on the part of Uche Jumbo, right? I've worked in radio for like over 5 years, right? And it is very uncommon to mention the names of callers, almost like you saved their numbers and you know they are the ones calling. There is no chance in this world that she actually saved the numbers of everybody calling. Because the way she was mentioned, how calls work on radio is that somebody is calling, but you don't know who the person is. You're just seeing a number, right? And then you pick up the call and the person introduces himself or herself. But for everybody that called on that radio show, she mentioned their name. Oh, Ireti is calling. Oh, this person is calling. Oh, so names were mentioned on every call, and that is not normal when it comes to radio. Yes, there are instances of some OAP saving like one or two numbers of very frequent callers, right? As a way of just showing, that, they notice this person and this person is a big fan of the show. But Uche Jobo mentioned the names of like everybody that called into that show. Everybody, she was mentioning the names of the callers, and it's not something that is original or natural in the radio space, right? Another thing I didn't like was the thing that was going on with the two women that came to claim the baby. In fact, the whole conversation there felt like, as I was watching it, what I was saying was, this looks like radio drama. The way that people would sit, the way they would do radio drama, like story, the way they would do it like that. That was what that thing looked like. It looked like I was watching or listening to a radio drama. It just didn't make sense at that particular point. So I think that, and then there's the title of the film, right? A Father's Love. It feels too easy. It feels too simple. It feels too direct. It feels lazy, if I could put it that way. It feels lazy. I feel like they should have been a bit more creative with the name. A Father's Love, like Nolly, I think Nolly Godfather said, it gives off this YouTube vibe, and this is an Amazon Prime film, so It was supposed to take a whole different shape, the name. So I think that's really it.
Okay, no, I hear you. Just going to read out some comments before Shozi says her piece. Ada says, I agree with A Mother's Love. It might be controversial, but I feel like she suffered more for the children, handling the work and childcare and the emotional toil. Ebube says, the one thing I did not like about this movie was the pacing. I can't lie, it just felt long. Okay. All right, Shozi, do you want to tell us some of the things that you did not like about A Father's Love?
Oh, finally. I thought I was going to forget everything. So quick one before I give my 2 cents, I just want to reply something that Oyikon said. I don't know if she's still online. Oyinkan, are you
Well,
there?
Yeah,
we have a
yes.
pushback. We have a pushback section.
Okay,
We have
yeah.
a pushback
She
section.
said two things,
Is it
and honestly, I just want to quickly
Shozi?
respond to her. Like,
Shozi, we have a
can you hear
yeah,
me?
but we have a pushback section specifically for replying to other people's and this thing. Yeah,
Oh,
and that
okay,
was immediately after this. But you can be the first person. You're
okay. I'll skip that and just make my own.
okay.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll skip that and just go straight to what I did not
Yeah.
like in this movie. To be honest, I think the number one thing I didn't like in this movie is the same police issue. I don't know. I just get peace. Like since 2020, I've not been able to recover with anything that has to do with police force in Nigeria. Like I'm tired, when David was trying to reunite the baby with his parents, the whole false accusations, threats of unlawful arrest. Again, it's highlighting the mistrust between Nigerians and the police people. Like that's one thing I didn't like. I'm just tired and fed up of it. It really got the best of me while watching like all those scenes. Then there's something I noticed, and it's funny because I was the one that made this comment. In as much as is one thing I highlighted as one of the highlights of the movie, it still has like its own disadvantage, which is the whole paternity fraud issue. Now, like I know I made a misstatement saying they shouldn't blame only Yvonne Jegede, but her husband should share from it. But what there was something that I really noticed in the movie that was kind of like weird, you know. We all know that Nigerians are like really judgmental, right? And we all know the whole way they carry on about things like paternity fraud. So at a point in the movie, it kind of looked like there was no condemning whatsoever for her actions, nothing, And it was just kind of like making it look like I don't want to use the word blame, putting the blame on David that okay, yeah, her husband pushed her to, come to this decision. But I still feel like there should have been some sort of what's the word now I would put I don't know, but there should be some sort of like condemning to an extent if we are going to keep you real, because I mean they're trying to show like the typical, like someone said, a slice of life, like Nigerian harsh realities. Like this is a trenchy story. So I feel like if they wanted to keep it 100, let's keep it 100. Come on, like it's not like they were rich. You will say, okay, this is what happened. They're trying to cover it up. Like this was like proper trenchy. So you can't just like just do it and there was just no, I don't know. I didn't feel like any, like I said, any condemning at our own part concerning like judgment and stigma that are always like surrounding such. Then some scenes were too long. I beg, I can't even lie. Some scenes they just kept on dragging for too long. And I promise you, they could have avoided it and the movie would still be a nice one. Like, for example, that lady's part where she was having a review. All those constant flashbacks and awkward pauses. Honestly, I felt like it was unnecessary. Then all the times that David would visit his friend, Funny Bone, what was his name in the movie? I think Panchak or something like that. Yeah, we visit Funny Bones in his mechanic workshop. I feel like it was unnecessary because at some point I was asking myself like, David, this one they are spending more time at the workshop than your house. Like, what's going on? It was just too much. It was really, really too much. Then there was one annoying scene, I think, where he wanted to borrow money from his friend for his son's medical bills. So when Funny Bone stretched out his money to give it to that's David, they didn't show David collecting the money. Instead, they put the camera, they focused on the doctor. why he was collecting the money. And I was like, I don't know the message they were trying to pass there. It kind of like, to me, it kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but it added a different depth to me. And I don't know how other people saw the movie. Like the other lady said, like imagery is very important in movies. So I really don't know how they expected the viewers to like, interpret that part. I don't know why they were focusing the camera on that person instead. So yeah, those are just some of the things I didn't like in the movie.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rosie. And Max. Oh, okay. Max is number one. Mr. C.
What did I not like? So I think someone has mentioned this, but yeah, I feel like for where we were trying to get to, there was too much of a setup. And I don't know, it felt like the baby wasn't particularly important, although like the baby was him doing the DNA test on the baby, right? And proving his fidelity in quote was what sent her into a room to go and cry. But that's kind of all it did. And then the baby was what gave them money at the end of the film and just kind of solved their problems. But there was a whole carry on and a whole to do about this baby when the whole point of it was not exactly the baby. Also, I think there was a lack of commitment to just this woman's paternity fraud. There was so much waffling and so much, there was pressure from the family and they were pressuring you after we had the twins. And I'm thinking, who's pressuring these people to have more children? Now, if they said they were pressuring them for a son, right? I'd be like, all right, fair, right? But they just kept saying they were pressuring us for another child and the pressure was getting too much. You have 2 children and you're struggling. It didn't seem like enough motivation for all this extra drama and extra ceremony. And then it's, you were drinking and you were, angry and just unhappy. It's like over one additional child? Like that set up for if they had no kids before this kid, sure. But this was one additional child, not specifically a boy. They just wanted just one additional child. That was it. And it didn't work for me. And then it felt like if we had just had that story of, hey, we were having a rough time. You were drinking. Remember when you were drinking, right? This guy came by my shop and one thing led to another. We could have started from one thing led to another. Commit to one thing led to another. Don't give us all this extra of, there was family pressure. It was cheating. It wasn't drinking. He was angry, blah, blah, blah. No, somebody can cheat. It's fine. I mean, it's not, but like commit to it and then commit to this path of forgiveness. Then yeah, it's just, I don't know how we got back to this, I don't know how he got to forgiving her. I don't know how we got to trying to move this relationship forward and put the family back together. I felt like I got lost in the story. And I felt like it did the kind of thing that Kilborough did in a way where we spend so much time and then when we want to tie it up and we resolve it, we've run out of time. And then it just happens. And that was unsatisfying. And also, yeah, the honorary mention to the radio scene with the other 2 women. It wasn't well done with the 2 imposter women. It was very low commitment from the kidnappers. Yeah, I think that's kind of about it. I got lost in the story and the story kind of got lost with me too, I guess.
Okay. All right. So for me, things I did not like. So I think in the good I mentioned, it took a cliched story and it did something interesting. It told it in an interesting way. However, it's still a cliched story. It is, and honestly, it was the less interesting one of the 2, or of the other one, like the child getting kidnapped and sort of wondering what to do with that. I know it sort of kind of plays into it. That's another criticism, is that it didn't. it felt like it was there, but they didn't really lean into it. It was just like one line. I think I remember one line at some point. Yvonne Jagede's character says, like, "Hey, but what about this other child that we've been raising? Like, like you've been a father to that child without, what's that different with the rest of the the rest of the kids? I mean, the lack of lies would probably be the thing." The not lying would probably be the answer there. But I just didn't feel like it connected, and we spent so much time on it that for it not really to play a major part, not really. So um, so yeah, it took the more for me less interest. For me, it took the less interesting story, and that was what it sort of concentrated on towards the end, which was disappointing. I also did not. I didn't love the characters. I said Yvonne Jagede does a great performance. I don't like her character. There's really nothing to her. She's just doing. Again, this is unlike Uche Jumbo's character, which I thought like had a personality about her. I don't know that. I feel like Yvonne Jagede's character is just, I'm a loving, good mother that, yeah, I love. I'm a mother, yeah, wife, whatever. It's just, as the plot really needs her to be. Again, she does a great performance, and this is it's something to notice a really good performance with a not very well written character. So, um, really something to say about her performance. Um, I didn't understand why there were two of the children, the twins. I didn't know why there needed to be two of them. I think I get it in terms of maybe, having three children is feels more of a, obviously, of a load when you're having already three children is more of a load than two. But I felt like one girl could have done both of the performances, and we probably would have still ended up with the same story. And it sometimes made for awkward directing of the children, because like sometimes they just want to do, like you're twins, you're always saying or doing the same thing, and that just felt, you could just feel that being where you can see the strings, and you can just feel too much the director's hands going, okay, we're going to do this and say it like this. It felt unnatural, felt forced on some on parts. I know somebody said they liked David walking in the rain. I thought it was hilarious. It just looked really funny. That's not. I thought David sort of does a lot of good performances here and there, but his walking in slow motion in New Year Rain was funny. It's just very, very funny to me. I couldn't take him seriously, and he did it for so long. It went on for so long. I was like, yeah, I didn't particularly like his character either. I think I know, like, he probably needed to have that flaw of, hey, you need to have that flaw in terms of not wanting to confront his issues, so that his friend could, Funny Bone's character could tell him, hey, there are more things to being a man. But I don't know, this guy has been very hardworking. He just seemed like the quintessential good dude and hardworking guy, and just that maybe that's the first time maybe I can feel that's a female character writing a man, where it just felt like I can get maybe 3 hours to take to compose yourself, but he was running away from his wife. I'm like, why? It's something like I couldn't connect with that, the level that he gave that shock news. I get it, the news is shocking, but I just couldn't connect with the length and gravity he gave to it. And even the film as well, again, with the slow motion and the walking in the rain, I just thought the whole thing looked silly and closer to comedy. I think somebody has already mentioned the DNA test. But yes, I would just add, in addition to, like, it didn't make sense for, in addition to like the doctor wouldn't do it like that. It just, the whole point of getting a DNA test was because they didn't believe him. Why would you let him bring in a random swab? Well, bring in a swab that you haven't physically checked. Within the story, it makes even less sense. Is what I'm trying to say. Like if there's, if it's your doctor friend and something, that fine, that makes sense. Like you, guy who is maybe not sure about his wife, and hey, he has a doctor as a friend. Hey, doctor, please, can you just do this for me? Yeah, that makes sense. But a guy who is like, yeah, I do think we need to verify your trustworthiness. Letting him bring in his own swab just made extra little sense. So generally, yeah, I'm also with Mrs. C, where the juggling of the stories didn't work for me. Like I said, I think it did pick the uninteresting one. Even though, like I think I've said, it does have an interesting. It's failing in a way I actually kind of like. It feels interesting. At least it feels like somebody is trying something that is a little different. And honestly, I think a few kinks here and there, and this would have probably turned out about 30 to 40% better. And that would have made it for me. But yeah, that's just some of the things I did not like about the film. Before, one last thing I think I have to say, and maybe it's not quite a pushback, but I actually liked, one thing I liked about this movie was sometimes with the restraint of some of the soundtrack. There were some areas where I just know a Nollywood movie would have put a sappy song in the background, and I felt its absence, and it made the scene a lot more. It made the scene feel a lot more pronounced, important, and some of the editing was interesting as well. They took, a lot of times in Nollywood movies, it's like the editing goes, okay, this person has finished speaking, we cut to the next person. All right, so this person has finished speaking, and it just keeps on cutting from when the person finished speaking to when the next person finished speaking. But sometimes somebody would finish speaking, and we would just be watching the reaction of the person that had just finished speaking whilst the other person was speaking, and it was not in a rush to cut like that. I like a lot of interesting choices like that in the editing, and it shouldn't be interesting in the grand scheme of things, but for Nollywood, that is very, very interesting. So I did like that, and maybe that works as a minor pushback to some of the scores thing. I didn't particularly find the score. The score didn't bother me as much as it has done some other people. I actually, what I did notice was some of the restraint it did take. So kudos to whoever made that decision or who decided not to put it in there. All right, so we'll start with Shozi. Shozi did have a pushback. We're getting into the pushback section. Shozi, do you want to?
Guy, the way I kept on reciting what I was saying, I was chanting it because I was almost forgetting. So, like I said, I wanted to respond to what Onyikon said the other time. She made like two valid points that I totally resonate and I agree with. The first one was her talking about the whole plot thingy. So yeah, I was going to say, Onyikon, I agree with you, yeah, but say it from this angle. I think what they were trying to depict in the movies, the way your life, like you go through life every day. So it's basically like you dealing with something and then another thing pops up, and you're trying to wrap your head around that one, then there comes another one. I think that's what they were trying to portray with the whole Onyiko, are you there? I don't know if you get what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I get
The
what
the
you're
point
saying.
you made.
I
Yeah, so I feel they were just trying to portray like life goes on, like there's no pause, like fine, it doesn't matter if the whole paternity fraud, the whole missing child connects, but this guy is dealing with this shit, he's dealing with this one. Do you get what I'm saying? As a man, he must shall find a way at the end. I think that's what they were trying to portray. Like my own personal opinion. I don't know if like other people viewed it that way, but That's why I just feel like they were trying to portray in the movie. That's for that one. Then the second one that you said concerning that part that he, through the picture, they didn't show any scene that he came back to pick it. I agree with you again, but this is where imagery comes in, right? Let me tell you what I imagined or what I felt they were trying to portray again in this part. In real life, how everything is not always rosy, just like all of us on this space now. If someone should say, oh, someone did this to me, some people will be like, oh, I'll forgive. Some will say, I'll never forgive. I feel like those people that are quick to say I'll forgive, I feel like until they really like find themselves in such shoes. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Like, it's easier said than done. I think that's what they were trying to, like. Yes, he was angry. He still loved his family. He didn't mean it, but maybe they should have showed a scene where he came back to pick the picture or something, or maybe apologize. What if, like, guys, that's why, when I talked about the highlights of the movie, where I said they portrayed a whole lot of masculinity, ego, and the rest. I feel like that's just part of it. Like, maybe he felt bad inside. Yes, we can't see inside of his heart, but maybe he felt bad. But of course, he just felt like there was no need for him to like still tell with the audience or the family that I cared. After all, look at my actions. Every other thing I'm doing, I care. I'm trying to like protect my family, provide for them. So I feel like it's just a real life situation of sometimes in life, let's be honest, we say and do a lot of things when we are angry. Yes, we regret it later. Sorry about that. We regret it later, but that does not mean that I don't know how to put it, but when I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. That even if they didn't show a scene that yes, he didn't mean what he said. I feel like I don't know, Sha. Maybe it's just me. I just hope you get what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I
I don't
agree.
really know how to buttress my
I
thoughts
get what you're
there.
saying. In
You know?
fact, I do agree with you. I only brought up the plot thing because it's not personally, I even said it when I said it. I don't personally think
Yeah,
plot is that. I think plot is important, but I don't ever think that everything we see in a movie should always move the plot. I even agree with you
yeah.
that
I
that's the
agree with
reason why it's there. I'm just bringing it up as like, I know this is one thing that people say. This is one. I'm bringing it up as like another person's perspective. Me myself personally, I argue what you argue. Like there's a need for this. It plays the thing of like the theme of the story and the atmosphere of the movie. I'm not one of the people that says everything must have plot. I don't know where that came off. I know where it came
yeah,
up.
I
I know
get.
where it came from, but it's too much now. It's now getting annoying. I don't like that criticism anymore because I actually now find it quite like you don't understand what movies are anymore. Like you're just making it into
Yeah.
like a automatic factory making something. It's the most simple version of a movie to like everything serves a plot.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm actually
Then
with you. I'm glad that there are people about that. I'm actually on your side. I actually do agree. I'm just saying that imagery when they show it away, it's very powerful. I just wish to
yeah,
they
I get it.
I wish I agree. Me and you agree 100%. It's okay. I'm just talking about that person's perspective. Like I see where they're coming from,
Okay,
but it's
there's
not
two people
completely my
agreement
opinion.
here. What is essentially the pushback section here. So, all right.
Oh, I have a pushback.
Okay, go on.
I do have a pushback. Uh, I see where you're coming from about the whole like oh he walking. First of all, that scene was too long. But like him not going to see his wife, him not going to do something. It seems like a guy just because somebody's hardworking or people human beings are contradictory people, or just because somebody seems to be able to be confrontational in this manner doesn't mean that they will be less they won't be non-confrontation in another manner. He's a guy who had problem having a child. The woman suggested, let's go see, you go see something. He says there's nothing wrong with me. Just automatically says it. He's avoiding a possibility of an issue of him being the issue. It kind of makes sense that guy we want to avoid or face something about him, something that he didn't want to face before. Because now, if indeed this child is not his, and he's going to ask about the other children, because if somebody can do one thing, there's a possibility they've done something before. Doesn't always mean they did, but there's a possibility. It is something that he wanted to avoid. So I can see why he would stay for days. days and days and days not to avoid something that before he was always trying to avoid, and now there's something that he has to not that is like facing him. You cannot avoid. That's why they say ignorance is bliss, right? Once you know something that is so
I get it. So, but the reason why for me it doesn't work is when I was saying this, it felt like you're writing this quintessential man, just hardworking guy. I feel like I just feel like I would want to hear. I need to hear this from the woman that the wife of how many ever years, and it's just like the kind of relationship that they had. I feel like I would need to hear that immediately. I wouldn't need somebody to convince me. It's like it's the first thing that comes to my head. That's why I said I could not connect with it. I don't know what any other person.
No, I get that. I'm not disagreeing for you not to connect with, because this is subjective. Engaging with heart is subjective. There are things that I could not connect to, but it's okay. That's okay. I'm just putting that one a different opinion out there of like, it seems like the character written seems to be a guy, the way it was written seems to be a guy who avoid the issue of his probable infertility. Infertility was probable. I don't want to use that other word that comes impotent. I don't want to use it because I feel like it carries a lot of like baggage. That is possibly like that, and he doesn't want to avoid it. There's already a precedent in the movie that showed before of him avoiding to go to the doctor, and now this issue has come knocking on his door, and he just wants to close the door and not face it.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Yinka. Not a good fellow.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just responding to the scene where he throws the pictures of the kids away, and I just felt that helped showcase the conflict better. So I didn't see that as an issue. The other thing is that many have mentioned is the shift in plot. That also did not bother me because I felt that it was the movie was moving towards making the point of what being a father is all about. So and the second plot was also very much in line with that. So and the first plot not being resolved also I feel was all right, because looking at where it's coming from, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack in a in in a city like Lagos, where but yeah, that being said, I think we could conclude that uh, it was left, the kid was deliberately left in the cab. So yeah, those were my two main points.
Okay. All right. Thanks. No, you good fellow. Anything else before we move to the summary?
Yes, I have my hand up.
Sorry, I can't see any. Who spoke? I can't. Is that Tracy?
Ada.
After Ada, let's Elizabeth go. Thank you.
Right. Again, I can't see anybody's hands up. Thank goodness I asked. Okay, so Ada, it looks like you're on mute it doesn't look like you've unmuted yourself from my view. Sorry, Elon is doing this again. So go on.
Yeah. So I have a bit of pushback. Actually, before pushback, I just had a slight. Well, I'm a bit confused about why the doctor even mentioned that the child was not his. I don't know if anyone knows. It seems like he just gave blood to the hospital. I don't know why. I think that breaks ethical laws. I don't know why he would have mentioned that, but I don't know if someone knows an answer. That would be great. In terms of the pushback, people were saying that the ending felt too pretty, too glory be to God. I don't think it is. I think he didn't necessarily forgive her. I think he did still care about the child, and he did. That's why he turned up to the radio. And he didn't. The way the ending was it was quite a little bit open-ended. So it wasn't, although he was saying my wife and I, yeah, that makes sense if you're speaking on the radio. It wasn't a I forgive you, everything is all right, and I'm going to move in, and to God be the glory. The movie ended where it ended because it left some sort of open-ended conclusion. That means that maybe they're going to work through it or maybe not. I don't think it was very pretty ending, so I disagree with that. I think the point about the plot, not every plot needing to always move in the story, I would agree, except this is quite a big plot. This is, first of all, they spent like a whole hour, so half of the movie kind of like setting up and building this plot, and then like kind of gets abandoned. And number two, it is way too big of a plot point for it not to be consequential. So if it was a plot about, I don't know, maybe they caught someone else cheating and whatever, fine. This is a whole human being, a whole child that you found in your taxi. For it not to go anywhere and to just be completely abandoned for some other story, that is way too big for it to be abandoned. So I disagree that it didn't have to be ending somewhere. That is that is way too important to leave open-ended and to kind of drop for the other plot of the infidelity. Yeah, I don't in terms of picking up the picture, yeah, I don't think so he did drop the picture and then he was avoiding her calls. So I don't think he was a quick switch of route of I don't care about these children, now I suddenly care about them. So that was in the heat of the moment. And you could see he was still avoiding the calls. And then after his friend tried to tell him, something may be wrong with the children, maybe obviously still has a little bit of care for them, but it wasn't an immediate thing of, okay, I don't care about them, and the next minute I very much want to talk to them. It was still a little bit of conflict, and which is why he wasn't really willing to talk to her. So I don't think that was, I thought that was shown quite well. And yeah, I think that's, oh yes, just a small point. This is just a small thing. Someone said that doesn't know why the Uche Jumbo was mentioned the callers. I don't think that's unusual. I've definitely heard shows where the host is mentioned the callers. I think the producer may get the callers' names and then they feed that to the host. So I don't think that's actually unusual. But yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ada. I would say in defense of, I can't remember who raised that point. I think, usually what would happen with those radio calls is, you're right, where it feel like the producer would say this name, but like it did feel like she was picking up the calls herself for that. Yeah, okay. Also, I think it was
now.
Yeah. At least it's come. We're still dealing with some of Ada's pushback. The only other thing I wanted to say was that I did think it wrapped this in a nice, but I think that was one of my problems with like sort of both of the lead characters is I'm not even sure why they decided they really wanted this kid at the end. It just happens because it feels like the end has come. Yeah, they're not, especially will give away the money. It just felt too white knighty, and there was not a real reason for that to happen. But yeah. All right, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. So I have two pushbacks and just one general. Okay, so was it eccentric? Sorry, I can't see the full name that mentioned the mechanic scene, like not being necessary, but I think in tandem with the overall genre, which is really just slice of life. For that father, David is third space is that mechanics, please. And so many things happen there. Him finding a baby, borrowing money from him. You see, and it also serves as a soundboard, because that is how we get to know a lot of what he's thinking, what is going on in his head. So it really does serve purpose, even if it's just to, set the setting of his everyday life. We know that he works, he goes home, but his third space really is with his friend Panchak, who generally is like a glue in that entire relationship in between husband and wife and whatever. The third thing I wanted to, second thing is about the whole money exchanging hand from the mechanic, and then they say going to the editing moves to the doctor. So yeah, I don't know how you feel, but then I wanted to say, one, it's editing. Two, it saves time. Sometimes you feel like they should have known you in some other ways where they wasted our time. This works. But then if you're looking at the image interpretation, really, it could just literally mean that the mechanic is the one that's paying for the hospital bills, which really it won't be wrong, because money really just exchange hands from the mechanic to the doctor. So I'm not saying that you're not allowed to feel the way you feel. I'm just saying that there can be like another interpretation for that scene, especially since we're talking about imagery. And then, so finally, I want to talk about screenwriting. Right, we did talk about the writing on Kilborough last week and how it really dealt with friendship and different sort of types of human connection. I like Sifa Asani. I think I did mention it as a prose writer. I've read a couple of her books. She has a style which is very she loves the slow pace. I'm not going to make assumptions and say it's because maybe she's like the northern, the way we are, slow life around here. But I feel like she's one writer that I want to look out for, and I really hope she gets better, especially in writing tighter stories and trying to be a little bit more visual in her delivery, because this is a little bit more, this is different. This medium different from regular schmegular prose. And I feel, maybe not my feeling now, I don't want to say that the director directed everything. I don't know what goes on, because again, we've heard a lot of time that there's usually disconnect between what is written in script and what is shown on screen. But between that and ending up on the editing table, I would say that we need to tell tighter stories, because a lot of the complaints, apart from the pacing, just really feels like there should be something more, or this could have been better if we've this was a better written, or rather tighter, not better, tighter written story. That's it for me.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. Just going to read this from Angela. I want us to remember that for the filmmakers under the first feature project, this is their first feature film. It would be nice to extend a lot more grace than usual, please. Well, that one's up to the people. But I think sometimes I feel like the best respect you can give somebody is just your opinion as you feel it. Other things might feel more patronizing. That's the way I think of it. But yeah, I know other people might feel differently, but yeah, I can't control everybody anyway. So that's for me. All right. Ankon, did you have your hand up?
Yes. It's a pushback to Ada. I do want to say, because you said that the plot with the baby didn't wasn't consequential, but the arguments we made was not that it wasn't consequential. We were saying that it was actually consequential. It's just not consequential in the part that people normally want that part to be like. Because usually in plot, right, it's like A to B to C to D, right? That's not the way this was consequential. It was consequential in the fact that as a movie as a whole, the movie as a whole has a theme, and the stories were just reflections of each other. It contributes to the movie as a whole. It is consequential to the movie as a whole. That is what it was consequential. And also it was resolved. It disappeared, sure, because that happened, and then we had to deal with the other theme of another type of story that also deals with the theme of the story. But in the end, it was resolved. The baby, it wasn't the idea of finding who the mother of the babe of the child is. The father of the child was already there by them taking the child into their home. And in the end, they adopted the child. They wanted the child. That plot was actually resolved. It's kind of like what's the name of this movie? Anatomy of a Flaw, right? We don't know whether she did it or not. We don't know whether she pushed her husband or not. But that's not the point of the movie. It is the ambiguity of like whether she did it or not. And the point of the movie, of that entire plot, was about looking at the French judicial system and knowing the nature of knowing and not knowing, of how can you use evidence, and if evidence is actually pointing you to the right thing or is not, or the story is of other. That's the point. And that's also the point of the first plot. So my pushback is that it was consequential, and the argument we were making was that it was consequential, just not necessarily like A to B to B to C. That's what we're saying.
All right. And Shozi, please make it quick so we can go into our summaries.
Okay, I think Oyikon just took the words out of my mouth. I think we share similar thoughts. I wanted to that first thing that the person said concerning the plot, but she's answered already, so that's fine. Can move into the summary.
All right. Okay. Inka and Shozi, you guys can make out later. Let's go into the summaries as we start with. Oh, is it going to be Elizabeth? Because Alana is gone. Yes, Elizabeth. Do you want to give us your summary of A Father's Love?
I summarized those. Okay, so this is a feel good, not too heavy. Did a good job balancing the genre. You're not taking what's that thing? Like the movie doesn't lose you depending on the genre. Let me put that word. You're not confused as to what exactly is your identity, OU film. So that is a good job. And for the first time director, great project by Steve Gukas, is that his name? We reviewed another one last week. I think this is a good job, getting alternative stories. Not exactly alternative story. We've seen all of this before, but then, in this depiction, I feel like it could be a better film. It was too long, 2 hours too long. It was not necessary. It did not have to be that long, please. So overall, will I recommend? Yes, especially since it's on Prime, and we already know the kind of crime scene Prime is for Nollywood films. So just to avoid heartbreak when you're waffling through the yama yama there, just type Steve Gukas. Maybe you will see all the films that these directors have debuted, and then you can watch. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk.
Yeah, I think I will be actually taking that advice because I've just been there's just something to it, and honestly, it's probably not sustainable in terms of if the quality generally doesn't go up, but I do like that it does feel different. It takes, but yes, it's refreshing. Ada, do you want to tell us, give us your summary of A Father's Love?
Yeah, so I think this was a compelling story, quite interesting. As it's been mentioned, I wish they had taken a more interesting plot, which is the missing the abandoned baby. But nevertheless, I think it was quite an interesting story, relatable. Despite my misgivings about the plot switch, which I still stand by, say that it doesn't work for me. I don't think it it didn't majorly take me out of the movie. I do think that it lost some sort of momentum, both in the way that the story switched, but also in the pacing. And I don't know, something changed once they switched up, which lost me a little bit. But overall, I think it was an okay watch. I don't think it was a terrible movie, and I would definitely recommend it.
All right, thanks, Ada. Inkan, do you want to give us your summary?
Yes. It was a good movie, and I think it was a little bit above okay for me, for my taste. I like very good written slice of life things. So, but as Horace on a Sunday on a Sunday night or any night you're free or any day, whatever, you come back from work. Movies are to entertain, right? You put it on, give it 30 minutes. If you like it, you connect to it in whatever way, how way it is, continue. If you don't, change it. There are millions and millions and millions of movies, TV shows, whatever in this world. Change it to one of that. You decide whether you like it or not. That's it.
All right. Thanks, Inka. Not a good fellow. Do you want to give us your summary?
I don't have much to say that I haven't said, but yeah, I'd say overall it is a beautiful film, pretty emotional. Yeah, I also mentioned that I didn't like the way the radio part was handled, but if you overlook that, it is a beautiful human story, and I'd highly recommend it. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. No, thanks, not a good fellow. Shozi, do you want to give us your summary?
Overall, well, it's a nice movie. I mean, I enjoyed the movie. I have already recommended, just in case you would ask me if I would recommend. I already recommended, and two people I recommended. They're already like in this space already. So I'm sure if it wasn't like a good movie, they would not have like watched. Well, nice movie. Basically showing us how to navigate through the complexities of love, sacrifice, and forgiveness. I'll score it 7/10. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thanks, Shozi. This is C.
Yeah, I like what Steve is doing with this first features thing. I think it's really interesting. And I'd like to see more of where this goes.
Yeah, so I think I already gave a hint of where I am with this. I don't actually, as a movie, I think it collapses for me especially towards the second half of the film. So, but like if you listen to my good, you probably would think I love this film or really enjoyed it. And I don't, I kind of, because for me, I guess for me, the film it's not just about the ending or the journey. There are loads of, this is the same almost with Kilbur, there are loads of, parts of the filmmaking that is just to be admired. That yes, even though I don't think the both of the third acts work for me, I was just so intrigued by what I was seeing, and it felt so refreshing watching it that I just I've had I've had a I've had a better time than I should have. So yeah, that's my general thoughts on it. It doesn't quite work, but I enjoyed the journey, and these are people's first features, so I'm interested to see what a couple more goes. Happens. Like doing a feature is very much different from doing short films. I know this this director made, I think he made a AFRIF award-winning short film. But yeah, making a feature is a different beast, and it'd be interesting to see what the director is like 2, 3 films down the line. He certainly has an interesting eye. So yeah, I like this Steve Gukas project. I will, like Elizabeth, I will be taking up Elizabeth's recommendation. I'll be going on Prime and seeing what else he might have produced. By the way, he produced Living in Bondage. He's one of the producers of Living in Bondage. One of the producers, obviously. We know that's Charles. That's Charles' first baby, but yeah, he's been doing this for some time, and he's he knows, he clearly knows something. He definitely knows something. So yeah, I'm intrigued by this, and I will be checking out more things from First Features, and I can't wait to see more. And but yeah, next week will be, I don't know what we're discussing next week. Actually, I'll have a look. Maybe I can filter through some things. If you have options, you can just also ask us, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again for coming, everybody. Thanks for the speakers who spoke, and see you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed listening and would like to join live, just follow us on Twitter at Iroko Critic and join us every Sunday, 6 p.m. West African time on our spaces.